Welcome to the Razor Storyteller, where every snip of the scissors and glide of the razor uncovers a tale of real life, raw and unfiltered. I'm your host, a barber with years behind the chair, shaping fades and crafting clean shaves for folks from all walks of life. My shop's a sanctuary where clients don't just get a haircut, they share their stories, their triumphs, their heartbreaks. With their blessing, I'm here to pass those stories on to you, changing names to keep things respectful, but keeping the truth front and center. Today, I'm diving into a story that'll hit you hard, a tale of prejudice, power, and a father's love that shook an entire luxury resort to its core. This story belongs to Reuben Ellington, a man who sat in my chair a few months back, his calloused hands gripping the armrest as he recounted a trip that changed him forever. Reuben's a former Marine turned self-made millionaire, a single dad who built a business empire from nothing, all for his 10-year-old daughter, Aubrey. He came to Scottsdale, Arizona, dreaming of a special birthday getaway at Sierra Marray Resort, a place he secretly owns, a gem he poured millions into to create a haven where everyone feels valued. But what he faced there wasn't hospitality. It was a cold slap of judgment based on his worn jeans and simple demeanor. Reuben shared this story with me because he wanted the world to know how quick we are to judge a book by its cover, and how those snap decisions can unravel when the truth comes knocking. He wanted to remind us all that respect isn't about what you see, it's about what you owe every soul who crosses your path. So let me take you to Scottsdale, where the desert meets extravagance, where mountains glow orange and pink under a sunset sky like a watercolor masterpiece. For Aubrey Ellington, it was the promise of a dream come true, her 10th birthday, a father-daughter adventure at a resort her dad had crafted with love. But for Reuben, it became a test he never saw coming. With his permission, I'll tell you his story, in his voice as he told it to me, raw, real, and ready to make you rethink everything. Here's how it began. 6 hours by car from San Diego, a long but promising journey. Reuben Ellington, a man who had built an empire from scratch after years of service in the Marine Corps, now wanted only one simple thing: peace and his daughter's smile. He had invested millions to renovate Sierra Marray, turning it into a jewel in the desert, a place where every guest, regardless of who they were, would feel welcomed and valued. At least that's what he thought. Mackenzie spoke, her voice cold and unsympathetic. "Welcome to Sierra Marray. Is there something I can help you with?" Reuben replied, his voice still polite. "Hello, I'd like to check in. My name is Reuben Ellington, booked through Ellington Travel Partners. I'm sorry, sir, but we are completely booked for the week. There must have been some mistake. Perhaps you should try the hotel across the street." The narrator's voice turned dramatic, emphasizing the injustice. Completely booked? Reuben was stunned. He knew very well this hotel still had many high-end rooms available. He had checked the system himself before the trip. This wasn't a mistake. This was a blatant refusal, a judgment based on appearance. Aubrey, standing beside him, her earlier excited expression now fallen, her large round eyes looking at her father with confusion and disappointment. A single father, in simple clothes, with his young daughter, denied service at the very hotel he had poured his heart, soul, and money into building. They didn't know who he was. They didn't know that the man they had just scorned was their own boss, the one who held the fate of everyone working under this roof. What will happen when arrogance and prejudice confront an undeniable truth? When those who presume to judge others are about to face the judgment of the very boss they don't even recognize? Reuben Ellington's vacation had just begun, but it quickly turned into an unintentional inspection. And what he would discover would shake Sierra Marray Resort to its core. Prepare for a story of hidden truths, harmful prejudices, and a spectacular turnaround that will make you reflect. Don't miss it, because you won't believe what happens next. Reuben Ellington led his daughter to a marble bench near the artificial waterfall, where the gentle gurgle of the water somewhat masked the discomfort rising within him. Aubrey sat quietly beside him, her little legs no longer swinging cheerfully, replaced by a heartbreaking silence. "Daddy, did they forget our room?" she whispered, her voice full of disappointment. Reuben tried to offer a reassuring smile, though his heart was tightening. I don't think they forgot, sweetheart. I think someone just didn't want to look closely enough. He stroked his daughter's hair. Sometimes people make decisions based on what they think they see, not on the truth. Aubrey looked up at her father, her clear eyes still a little bewildered. Like, "You're in disguise, Daddy?" Something like that. "But I'm not the one in disguise." Reuben replied softly. He didn't want Aubrey to worry too much about this. He wanted this trip to be a beautiful memory for her. But the recent incident was like a thorn in his pride, and more importantly, it struck at the core values he had always strived to build for Sierra Marray. He had experienced being judged by his appearance, being denied opportunities simply because people didn't see his true potential, and he never wanted his customers or his employees to endure that. He sat there, silently observing. He saw Mackenzie, after refusing him, flash a radiant, welcoming smile at a lavishly dressed couple who had just walked in. They were checked in quickly, without a hitch, and led to the elevator by a smiling bellhop. That bellhop, when passing Reuben and Aubrey, merely glanced at them before quickly turning away, as if they were air. The discrimination was too obvious, too blatant. This was no longer a mistake. This was an issue of attitude, of service culture. Reuben said nothing, but he noted everything. He wasn't the type to get angry by yelling and shouting. His anger usually simmered, transforming into a cold determination to find the truth and fix what was wrong. Before Aubrey could ask more, Reuben stood up. "Let's try again." He walked back to the reception desk, alone this time. Aubrey remained on the bench, but her eyes followed her father's every step. Mackenzie had just finished checking in another pair of guests, gentlemen in polo shirts discussing tea times and drink vouchers. "Excuse me," Reuben said, his voice still calm. Mackenzie sighed impatiently. "Sir, I already told you. I heard you. But I need you to do something for me. Type Ellington Travel Partners into the system and check for reservations under that name." Reuben interrupted. Mackenzie hesitated, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. "Listen, I already checked." Reuben didn't raise his voice, nor did he frown. He simply leaned forward slightly, looked her straight in the eye, and said clearly, deliberately, "Please." There was a small, very small change in Mackenzie's demeanor. Her eyes narrowed slightly, her shoulders tensed a bit. But finally, she began to type. She typed, scrolled, then stopped. For a fleeting moment, her face changed color, a flicker of recognition. Then it vanished instantly. "Nothing. There's nothing. Like I said, we're fully booked. I'm sorry," she said quickly, hastily exiting the screen. Reuben observed her. He said nothing, just gave a nod and stepped aside. From her seat in the lobby corner, Aubrey saw her father slowly walk towards the waiting area, passing the reception desk. He didn't look angry. He looked like someone gathering information, silent, focused. He found a seat near a large potted plant and took out his phone. A few taps and a call connected. "Lisa." "Yes, it's Reuben. I'm at Sierra Marray with Aubrey." "No, haven't checked in yet. I was just informed the hotel is full." "Yes, I appreciate the irony. Could you have someone double reservation on your end?" "That's right, under the usual name. I don't want any special preference. Just check. I'll wait." He hung up, leaning back in his seat. Aubrey had run over to sit beside him, resting her head on his arm. "Daddy, are we going to have to sleep in the car, Daddy?" she whispered. Reuben looked at his daughter. Her question touched a deep pain, not because they couldn't afford better, but because he remembered when that had been his only option in the past. "No, little princess. We're not going to sleep in the car," he said, kissing the top of her head. Just then his phone buzzed. A text message, then another, both from Lisa. "Confirmed. Your suite is still in the system. Booked under Ellington Travel. 5 nights, room 314. They definitely have rooms. Do you want me to call the general manager?" Reuben stared at the screen, then looked back towards the reception desk. "No, give them one more chance," he texted back. He stood up, phone still in hand, and walked back to the counter. This time another employee, a tall man in a beige blazer, about 30, with a thin mustache and a name tag reading Calvin, approached. "Good evening, sir. How may I help you?" Reuben looked at him, not aggressively, just directly. "Hello. I'm trying to check in. My reservation is under Ellington Travel Partners, room 314. Calvin nodded and began typing on the computer. Mackenzie, standing nearby, suddenly fell silent, her face visibly tense. After a few seconds, Calvin blinked, then looked up at Reuben. "Yes, here it is. 5 nights deluxe suite. My apologies, Mr. Ellington. He didn't even flinch when reading the name Ellington, but Mackenzie did. She startled just slightly. Reuben Ellington kept his voice even, soft, but there was an undeniable sharpness to it. So there were rooms available after all. Calvin, the employee who had just found the reservation, swallowed hard. Yes, sir, I'm not sure why it didn't show up before. He glanced quickly at Mackenzie, who stood as if rooted to the spot, her face drained of color. Perhaps you should look into that more thoroughly, Reuben replied, his eyes not leaving Calvin, though he was well aware of how Mackenzie must be feeling. Calvin nodded eagerly. Absolutely, Mr. Ellington. I'll have your room keys printed right away. Will you need assistance with your luggage? No. I want to speak with your general manager right now, Reuben said. Calvin froze. The general manager isn't currently at the hotel until tomorrow morning, sir. Reuben tilted his head slightly. All right, the assistant general manager then. I'll see if she's available. Calvin quickly disappeared through a door behind the counter, leaving Reuben and Mackenzie in an oppressive silence. Mackenzie suddenly found the ballpoint pen in her hand incredibly interesting. She didn't dare look up. Aubrey, tired of watching the waterfall, ran back and took her father's hand. Daddy, do we have our room now? Yes, sweetheart, but Daddy's not finished here yet, Reuben said, gently stroking his daughter's hair. He wasn't just checking in anymore. He was paying attention, and he wasn't going to let this go. A few minutes later, Calvin returned, his face slightly flustered, holding 2 newly printed room key cards. Mr. Ellington, room 314, 3rd floor, the elevator is to your left, he said, placing them on the counter with an attempted professional smile. Reuben didn't reach for the keys. He looked Calvin straight in the eye. Is your assistant general manager coming out with you? Calvin hesitated, then gave an awkward nod. She's, currently on an important call. She asked if you would kindly wait a moment, or if she could contact you tomorrow morning. I'll wait, Reuben said simply. He could feel Mackenzie's eyes fixed on him, but she said nothing. She stood perfectly still, as if hoping she'd disappear if she didn't move. Aubrey tugged gently on her father's shirt. Can I go watch the waterfall again, Daddy, while we wait? He nodded. Stay where I can see you, okay? She happily scampered off a few steps, then squatted down by the low marble wall surrounding the waterfall, delightedly watching the ripples distort her reflection. Reuben turned back to the reception desk. You said the hotel was full, he said, this time directly to Mackenzie. Finally, Mackenzie spoke, her voice trembling. Yes, earlier, I must have overlooked something. What you overlooked was me, Reuben said, his voice not raised but each word clear and sharp. Calvin tried to interject, his expression uneasy. Listen, sir, I'm sure it was just a simple mistake. Really? Reuben asked, his voice calm, without anger, but the weight of the question landed like a stone. Calvin fell silent. Mackenzie's posture had changed. Her face no longer held defensiveness, but profound shame. Reuben took the 2 key cards. I'm going up to my room to settle in. But after that, I want 10 minutes of your assistant general manager's time. This isn't over. Both Calvin and Mackenzie nodded silently. As Reuben and Aubrey stepped into the elevator, the doors slid shut with a soft ting. He glanced at his daughter. She looked up at him. Why did they want to give us a room, Daddy? He thought for a moment, choosing his words carefully. Because sometimes, sweetheart, people judge what they don't know. They see a man in old clothes with a child and they don't think that person belongs in a place like this. But we do belong. You said we own it. Aubrey said, that's right, we do. So they made a mistake. They made a choice. And now it's my turn. Reuben corrected. Because Reuben wasn't just here for a vacation anymore. Now it was a matter of principle. They reached room 314. The suite was beautiful. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked a magnificent view of Camelback Mountain. A long sofa faced a large, wall-mounted TV. Modern, clean, cozy furnishings, exactly as he had approved during the renovation. Aubrey ran straight to the balcony. Daddy, you can see the whole pool from here. He joined his daughter, watching the sunset descend over the desert horizon. The moment should have been peaceful, but his jaw remained tight. His phone buzzed again. A text from Lisa. Do you want me to call the board or legal? He typed back, no, but send this number to the regional director. Tell them I'm here until Thursday. If they want to know why their front desk just tried to turn away a paying guest, They can ask me. He put his phone down. 10 minutes later, there was a knock at the door. He opened it to find a woman in her 40s with short blonde hair, wearing a blazer over a black t-shirt. Her name tag read Amelia Rowe, Assistant General Manager. Ellington, I apologize for not meeting you sooner. I understand there was an issue with your check-in, she said, her voice a little rushed. Yes, there was. Come in, he said, stepping aside. She entered, clearly very nervous. I've spoken with my team and I just want to say I am incredibly sorry. I'm not sure what happened, but it does not reflect how we operate here. Reuben sat down. She remained standing. Tell me, do you know who I am? He said, lacing his fingers together. Yes, sir. After Calvin returned, I checked the records. You're listed in the ownership documents through Ellington Travel Partners. You're a silent partner. Amelia replied. He gave a single nod. So why do you think your staff told me the place was full? Amelia shifted her weight, choosing her words carefully. I think they made assumptions based on your appearance, sir, based on things they shouldn't use to judge a guest. That's the correct answer. But I need to know, do you condone that kind of behavior here? Reuben said, no, I do not, and I will handle this personally, she said firmly this time. Reuben watched her. Good, because I'm not going to make a scene, but I will remember this. He stood up. I'm not here to embarrass anyone, but I believe in accountability. I built this hotel for it to be better, not just nicer furnishings or better service, but better values. Do you understand? Amelia nodded quickly. Completely, sir. I will ensure the matter is addressed. He extended his hand. She took it. Thank you for your time, he said. As she left, he closed the door and turned to Aubrey, who was now curled up on the sofa, flipping through a resort magazine. Is everything okay now, Daddy? She asked. It's getting better, sweetheart, he replied. But Reuben wasn't finished observing, not by a long shot. The next morning, Reuben woke before dawn. Old habits from his military days were hard to break. He made a terrible cup of coffee from the in-room machine, then stepped out onto the balcony. The early morning air was cool, dry, and still. Below, the pool was still deserted, the lounge chairs neatly arranged. He leaned against the railing, silently observing. Yesterday's anger had passed, replaced by a purposeful curiosity. What had this place become when no one was paying attention? At precisely 8 a.m., he and Aubrey went downstairs. She wore her favorite orange dress with sneakers, her hair in 2 cute pigtails she'd done herself. Reuben maintained his simple appearance from the day before, a plain t-shirt, old jeans, no watch, no brand labels. They looked like any ordinary father and daughter on vacation. That was exactly what he wanted. As they walked through the main lobby, he noticed Mackenzie was at the reception desk again. Her smile seemed forced, her eyes downcast, her hands fidgeting with something under the counter. Calvin stood nearby, being overly polite to some elegantly dressed guests asking about the breakfast buffet. Reuben didn't stop. He and Aubrey headed straight to the hotel's main restaurant, Desert Bloom Cafe, located just off the lobby. Table for 2? A young hostess with box braids and a folder in her hand asked, her smile genuine. Yes, please, Reuben replied. She smiled. Right this way, sir. That was a good sign. They were seated near a window. Reuben ordered a veggie omelet and coffee. Aubrey immediately chose pancakes with chocolate chips and extra syrup. In the middle of their meal, Reuben noticed something. An older white couple in their 60s, clearly local regulars, were sitting at a nearby table. As soon as the hostess walked away, they called over another server. We don't want to sit here. Could we move to somewhere quieter? The man said. The server glanced around. The only other empty table nearby was right next to Reuben and Aubrey's. She hesitated. We'd like to be away from the noise. The woman interjected. The word noise hung in the air. The man looked directly at Reuben as he said it. Reuben said nothing. The server, looking uncomfortable, led them to the other side of the restaurant, away from his table. Aubrey didn't seem to notice. She was drawing a rabbit on her napkin with syrup. But Reuben noticed, and so did someone else. The hostess, the same one who had seated them, quietly approached Reuben's table a few minutes later. Is everything all right here, sir? Reuben smiled. We're fine, thank you. She lowered her voice a little. I just wanted to say, I saw that, and I'm very sorry. That couple is known for being a bit sensitive. Reuben looked up at her. You handled it very well. She gave a nod. Thank you, sir. Please let me know if anyone else bothers you." She walked away, head held high, back straight. This was someone worth investing in, Reuben thought to himself. At 10 a.m., they returned to the main lobby. Reuben chose a seat, coffee cup in hand, and pretended to browse on his phone. Aubrey sat nearby with headphones watching a cartoon. But he was observing everything. A guest, a young black man in a suit, probably in town for a conference, walked in and approached the reception desk. Reuben saw Mackenzie tense up immediately. The man was very polite, presented his ID, and said his company had booked a room at the corporate rate. Mackenzie looked it up, then told him she couldn't find the reservation. He asked her to try again. She said there was nothing more she could do and told him to call his company and return with the confirmation. The man, clearly flustered but remaining calm, stepped aside and made a call. 30 seconds later, Reuben stood up and walked to the counter. "Excuse me, may I speak with Miss Amelia?" he said to Calvin. Calvin started as if he'd been expecting this moment. She hasn't actually arrived yet, sir." Reuben turned to Mackenzie. "Are you sure?" Mackenzie's face went pale. I'll check," Calvin said, already reaching for the phone. Reuben turned to the young man still on the phone. "Which company are you with?" The man looked surprised. "Tevest Energy. They told me everything was arranged." "Did they tell you which room?" "A standard king room." Reuben nodded. "They booked it through our corporate rate last week. I approved that contract." The man's eyes widened. "Wait, I'm Reuben Ellington. This hotel is mine," he said calmly. Mackenzie didn't move. Calvin nearly dropped the phone. Reuben turned to her. "Yesterday you saw my name, you saw my face, and you chose to act as if I didn't belong here." Silence. "And now this gentleman, who looks like me, is dressed even better than I am, speaks politely, walks in, and suddenly the system is empty." He took a step back. "I don't want excuses. I want accountability, and I want to see Miss Amelia when she arrives today." Reuben turned back to the young man. "You'll have your room in 5 minutes." He waved over the hostess from before. "Could you help him get settled?" She nodded. "Of course, sir." Reuben watched her lead the guest away. Then he went back and sat down next to Aubrey. She looked up. "Did you fix it again, Daddy?" He sipped his coffee. "Trying, sweetheart." Because this time, he wasn't just observing. He was taking names. By midday, the story of the simply dressed guest who was actually the owner, Reuben Ellington, had spread like wildfire throughout Sierra Marray Resort. Staff whispered near the elevators. The barista at the lobby coffee shop suddenly offered Reuben a complimentary coffee without a word of explanation. The bellhops, who the previous night hadn't even glanced his way, now bowed respectfully and stood straighter whenever he passed. Reuben didn't need that attention. That wasn't his goal. But what he wanted was slowly happening. People were beginning to realize they had been seen through. He and Aubrey spent the early afternoon at the pool. She happily splashed in the shallow end, chasing a pool noodle as if it were the greatest thing in the world. Reuben lay on a lounge chair by the pool, still silently observing. Occasionally, a group of employees would walk by. He caught familiar glances, furtive looks, double takes, but no one dared to approach. At precisely 2:47 p.m., he received a text message. "Miss Amelia is waiting for you in the executive VIP lounge. You can meet her at your convenience." He dried off, gave Aubrey a snack from the cafe, and said, "Daddy has to go talk to some people for a bit. Do you want to stay in the room and watch cartoons?" She nodded, her mouth still full of fruit cookies. He walked into the lounge, a quiet and luxurious space, occupied only by Amelia Rowe and another man. This man was white, balding, around 50, wearing a suit but no tie. The name tag pinned to his breast pocket read, "Gordon Presley, Regional Director." "Ah, so they had to dispatch the big boss from Regional 2. Amelia stood up. "Mr. Ellington." Reuben shook her hand, then turned to Gordon. The man extended a firm hand. "Mr. Ellington, a pleasure. I just flew in from Dallas this morning. Amelia has fully briefed me, and I wanted to apologize to you personally." Reuben chose an armchair. "You've read the report?" he asked. "Yes, I have." "Good. Then you also know this isn't a system error. This is a people problem." Gordon nodded. "I agree." Amelia quickly interjected. "I've spoken with Mackenzie. We're placing her on temporary leave while we conduct a full review." Reuben tilted his head slightly. "And the rest of your team?" "We're reevaluating our training protocols, seeing who has had anti-bias training and who hasn't." He held up a hand. I didn't come here to hear about training modules. Both fell silent. I came here because this establishment is very important to me. I bought it with the idea that everyone, absolutely everyone, should feel welcome when they walk through those doors, not just those who fit someone's image of who belongs here. Gordon shifted slightly in his seat. Reuben continued, his voice calm but firm. Last night, your employee lied. Today, I witnessed similar behavior repeated, and it wasn't subtle at all. It was repeated, calculated, and most importantly, entirely avoidable. He paused. I don't care if someone works behind the front desk or mops the floors. Every position here deserves respect. But respect isn't a one-way street. If your team disrespects customers, especially systematically, it means someone isn't doing their job. Amelia nodded. We understand, sir. No, you don't understand yet. You're reacting. There's a big difference. His voice was firmer this time. Gordon cleared his throat. So what would you like us to do, sir? Reuben leaned forward, his elbows on the table. I want more than just disciplinary measures. I want you to use this incident as a case study, something real, something your staff cannot ignore. Not a training module, not a slide presentation, but a meeting with full names, details, and consequences. They didn't interrupt. I want to be clear. This isn't about me. This is about anyone who walks into this hotel, whether they're wearing loafers or flip-flops, whether they arrive in a rental car or a Lexus. If your staff's first reaction is to assume someone doesn't belong here, then they are the ones who don't belong on my team. He stood up. And I want all those guests, especially those who were treated indifferently, to be followed up with and personally apologized to. A sincere apology, not a discount voucher. Gordon nodded slowly. Consider it done, sir. Reuben looked at Amelia. You do your job well, but don't cover for those who don't. It drags the whole team down. I understand, sir. He turned to leave, then paused at the door. Oh, and Gordon. Yes, Mr. Ellington? Next time your team lets someone like this slip through the cracks, make sure it's not an ex-Marine who owns the whole damn hotel. He left the lounge without waiting for a reply. Back in the elevator, Reuben exhaled sharply. It wasn't anger anymore, not even disappointment. It was clarity. And sometimes that's the most dangerous thing a person can have. He had given them a wake-up call. Now, it was up to them to decide what to do with it. The next morning, when Reuben Ellington stepped out of the elevator, something was different. The main lobby still had the same marble floor, the same artificial waterfall, the same scent of lavender and cedarwood, but the energy had shifted. Calvin, the receptionist from the previous night, was the first to greet him, no longer tense, but with a sincere humility. Good morning, Mr. Ellington. Did your daughter enjoy the pool yesterday? He said, standing straighter. Reuben nodded. She loved it. Thank you. Calvin looked like he wanted to say more, but then just nodded respectfully and returned to his work. At the Desert Bloom Cafe, the young hostess who had seated them the day before approached. Good morning. I heard about what you did. Many of us are truly grateful, she said softly. Reuben smiled. You did the right thing from the start. That's what matters. After breakfast, Reuben and Aubrey strolled around the hotel grounds together. She clung to his arm, her feet dangling off the edges of decorative stone planters, humming a little self-composed tune. For Aubrey, this was still just a fancy hotel with a big pool and unlimited pancakes, and Reuben wanted to keep it that way for her, at least for now. But as they passed the conference rooms, Amelia Rose stepped out. She held a folder, her expression serious but no longer tense like yesterday. Mr. Ellington, do you have a moment? She said. Aubrey looked up at her father. He winked at his daughter. Go on up to the room and get your tablet. I'll be up in a minute. When Aubrey was out of sight, Amelia cleared her throat. I thought you should know. We held an all-staff meeting this morning. Mandatory attendance. I laid out everything that happened. Names, details, everything. Reuben raised an eyebrow. How did they react? Amelia didn't sugarcoat it. Some got defensive. A few were ashamed. A couple tried to play dumb. But they listened. And I made it clear this wasn't optional development. This is a requirement. He nodded. That's what I wanted to hear. I also let them know you'd be speaking with corporate leadership next week. They're very interested in using this incident as training material for the entire hotel chain. Reuben chuckled softly. Good. Maybe that will help others avoid going through this. Amelia offered a small, sincere smile. Honestly, sir, You didn't have to handle it this way. You could have made a huge scene, called a press conference, fired people on the spot. Perhaps. But what would my daughter learn from that? Reuben said. Amelia didn't answer immediately. She'd learned that power is something to be wielded, not something to stand on. That's not what I want for her. I want her to understand respect, not revenge. Reuben continued. Amelia looked down at her folder. We will do better. I promise you, sir. I believe you. He turned to go, then stopped. Let me ask you something. If I had walked in here in a suit, no child, a different last name, do you think any of this would have happened? He said over his shoulder. Amelia was honest. No, sir, probably not. Reuben nodded. Then we both know what needs to change. That afternoon, Aubrey wanted to go to the gift shop downstairs. She had 10 birthday dollars burning a hole in her pocket. While they were browsed, Mackenzie quietly entered the shop. She looked smaller than a few days ago, not physically, but less confident. The sharp edges around her softened. Mr. Ellington, she said softly. He turned. I want to apologize for how I treated you, for how I looked at you. Aubrey was fiddling with some postcards nearby. I've done a lot of thinking, and I realize I made assumptions I had no right to make, and I can't take it back, but I'm sorry. Reuben studied her face. She meant it. You can tell when someone's no longer putting on an act. He nodded slightly. Thank you for saying that. She looked relieved. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I do forgive you. However, I won't forget, and neither should you, he said. She swallowed hard and nodded. I won't. As she walked away, Aubrey ran over, holding a javelina stuffed animal. Daddy, can I buy this? He chuckled. What is it, sweetie? It's a desert pig. He handed her the $10 bill. It's all yours, little boss. They spent the rest of their trip enjoying themselves. Days at the pool, room service, movies before bed. And for the first time in a long while, Reuben felt he wasn't just fixing things. He was building something. On their last morning, as they were loading the car, Calvin came out with 2 cold water bottles in a paper bag. A little snack for the road for you and your daughter. Muffins from the kitchen. No charge, sir, he said. Reuben took them. Thank you. Calvin looked him straight in the eye. We won't forget this lesson, sir. I hope so. He buckled Aubrey into her car seat, kissed her forehead, then slid into the driver's seat. As they drove away from Sierra Marray, Aubrey said, Daddy? Yes, sweetie? You're like a secret superhero, he smiled. No, sweetie, just your dad. Because sometimes the most powerful act is to walk with your head held high and clean hands. The story of Reuben Ellington at Sierra Marray Resort is not just about a customer service incident, but also about profound lessons on how we perceive and treat each other. Never judge others by their appearance, the clothes they wear, or what you think they can afford. Respect is free to give, but priceless when ignored. Appearances don't define a person's true worth. A leader's responsibility doesn't end with running a business. It extends to building and maintaining a corporate culture based on respect and fairness. A leader's presence and willingness to listen have an immense impact. Prejudice and assumptions can cause deep hurt and serious mistakes. Always strive to see people and situations objectively, without letting personal biases obscure the truth. Accountability and the courage to admit mistakes are the first steps toward correction and growth. Both Mackenzie and Calvin, after facing the consequences, showed change when they dared to admit their faults. A small action can create significant change. Reuben's handling of the situation, calm, decisive, yet without abusing power, served as a wake-up call and initiated positive changes throughout the hotel. If you are in a position to make a difference, use it wisely and responsibly. Reuben didn't just reclaim his rights, he wanted to establish a better standard of conduct for everyone. If this story makes you think more carefully about how we treat people based on first impressions, please share it. Perhaps someone who needs to hear this will see it at the right time. And if you've ever been on the other side of that reception desk, be patient. You never know who might be watching.